Here we go, guys. Another round of fixing stuff. This time it's the door handles. These are 356 door handles. I have an original here with the button, and then this one is a reproduction I picked up at a swap meet for cheap, 10 bucks. And now I know why. It's got a problem with the threads. There's only one screw that attaches this to the car, and it's an M5 that holds the whole door handle on. This one, the threads are damaged, and I'm concerned that if I fix it with just tapping it again, that it may not be strong enough to handle the duty of, opening and closing the door. Most of the load is on this little tang right here. Basically what happens is it goes in the hole, it kind of slides over and clips in, and hopefully it doesn't rattle because there's a seal in there. But this literally is the only thing that holds it in. M5's not that big. So what I'm going to attempt to do today is to show you guys how to repair this thread with a helicoil. That's, I think, a little bit better than going to the next size up. If I go to an M6, it's not that much bigger, but it's not original, and I would have to open up the hole in the door, and the car is already painted. I have the original here too. This is probably going to get restored as well. When I have all the things chromed, I'm going to drop this off at the same time. But because my car is driving, I'm going to use this one at least temporarily. Who knows, it could be on there for years by the time I get back to reassembling the original one and putting it back on. I do believe this is an original handle because it has a date mark inside, 1963, or at least it says 63. And it also has the key code written on the side. The factory would stamp that in. So when I compare these side by side, I notice that, the cutout here is completely hidden. It's different. The original is just a tad wider in this area here with a slightly bigger radius. You probably would feel that. The ends here where it attaches to the car, the footprint is quite a bit different. From here, they do look pretty similar, not much different. There's a little bit more of a lip there on the original. This is a little bit, maybe it's just the chrome, but this one is a little bit less pronounced on that little ridge right there. The biggest difference is probably in the way this foot is. And so there's just less of a pronounced ridge here. It almost looks like maybe it's either filled up or polished kind of weird. But unless you had the two side by side, you would really never know. So I'm 100% happy putting this one on the car. What would happen if you lost the thread engagement on this side? As you pull it, it's going to dent the door because it's going to twist the door right there. So this is what the helicoils actually look like, and these are steel. So the nice thing about putting these into a cast aluminum or zinc part is that it's actually steel. The threads are going into steel and not just the pot metal, which is a lot weaker than steel. So because you're tapping this a bigger diameter, this is the tap right here, basically you have a better grip on the cast aluminum, and then the 5mm thing attaches to steel. So generally, thread repairs with helicoils are essentially stronger than they would be if it was originally just tapped into the pot metal. That's the plus. The minus is that we got to put a pretty big hole in here. And like I said, there's one, not really a good way to hold this in the drill press. So it's constantly moving. And number two, we want to make sure we don't drill through the entire metal. This was only 10 bucks, but I want to try to save it if possible. I'm getting known now for saving parts that no one else wants. It's kind of funny. A lot of people do drill holes in the door handles, think that it makes the car lighter, which, this whole part weighs probably 8 ounces. Not really need to be drilled, but some people do that, I think, just for looks. Never mind, it's only 5.5 ounces. And if you were to drill the section that's already been hollowed out, you're going to save at the most 1/10 of an ounce. The other thing I want to do is pull the lock mechanism out, because if the lock mechanism won't go in the new part, then I don't want to even mess with this. There we go. So E-ring, wavy washer, and then big spring. And that's dirty, but that's how it came out. Yeah, but this will work. So let me go ahead and put the spring in. So if it had the retainer on the back, you'd be able to, you know, push it. So it's usable, it's workable, no modifications other than fix the threads. Most likely someone either cross-threaded it when they were installing it or they put in the wrong size screw. So I'm just gonna completely wrap this to protect it. It's almost like mummifying it. It's just a form of a clamp. So if I really wedge that in there, that allows me to, I'm not gonna, you know, be putting too much pressure on it, but that really does secure it pretty well. So I can clamp this in the vise, go ahead and drill it. I measure the thickness there right where the threads are. I get 286. So here I am set up on my drill press, and it's a little cockeyed in the vise, but that's because I want the part to be level. And so we look at the bubble there. It's now level with the table of the drill press. Just gonna move off of the hole right where it touches, and I'm gonna measure the distance here between this movable part of the drill press. Measure that, and then we can calculate how far I need to go down. Just monitor this gap right here. 552. So 552 and 285 is max 837. So I think I'll go down, 825 will be my max, just so I don't distort the metal, poke it through. So we're just gonna monitor as we go, center this back on the hole, and go for it. So I'm not going to measure it while it's spinning. Just going to take little progress checks every so often. Make sure I don't go too deep. So that's 700. So we got another 125 thousandths to go. So lucky for me, I did not break through, but I got, you know, really close to the bottom there. So the hole, you know, looks pretty good. Nice and clean. I'm just gonna run my countersink in there just by hand, just to make sure the tap gets started nice and even. And then we'll mount this on the table or clamp this down and start tapping for the helicoil. One of the problems with the helicoil tap is this is what they call a starting tap. So it's not good at doing the bottom of the hole. So we may have to modify or grind this just a little bit to help make the threads as deep as possible. So just going to get the threads started here. This metal is really soft, which is why I want to use the helicoil. Just trying to get it as straight as possible. Sometimes I'll use my level just to keep me honest. That's pretty good. Okay, now that the threads are started, I'm going to grind this tip off because I don't want the tip to go through and dent the metal where this is a really sharp tip. So I'm going to just blunt that down. Actually, I'm going to take quite a bit of the tap off. So here's what the tap looks like now. It's just flat. It's got a little bit of a lead in, but not much. But it should still go in the hole. Yep. Now we finish. And I think that's all the way that it's going to go. It feels like it's stopping. So let's take a look at the threads, see how far the helicoil will actually go down in there. The height of the helicoil is pretty tall. We don't need to use the whole helicoil either. We can cut the helicoil and use a few less threads just to make sure it's flush here. Now this is the tool that's really helps you install the helicoils. So the helicoils on the back have this little tang, it's called, and it can break off after you're done installing it. But for that, it's here because you need it to install it, to twist it in. So this tool will fit just like that over the tang and allows you to thread it in. And then once it's in, you can break off that piece if you want, or you could leave it in. I just usually break it off. But it has this collar on here. The collar is pretty important because what can happen when you go to thread this in, if you don't use the collar, is when you push on it, it can expand. And if it expands, it binds in the threads. So best to, and because it's a blind hole, we want to move this out as far as possible to the tip. So we're just going to go right here to the very end. As long as we can turn it, we're good. Okay, so I need to adjust my collar. It started in there, but I need to adjust it because it's now getting longer as it threads in. Yeah, it's getting quite a bit longer. There we go. Now I'm going to try to break off that little tang in there, but there's really nowhere for it to go other than just snap it. So I'll try to get it out of there. It may not come out. I have these needle nose pliers that might go in there. Try that first. But this material is super stiff and these pliers are just kind of flailing around. So normally what you do is you just hit it pretty hard with a hammer and that breaks it free. So let me try that too. Remember, there's only about 20 thousandths of material underneath this tang, so I can flex it a little bit. Yeah, I think it just broke it off, or it's loose. I don't know if you can see that, but that is what's left over from the helicoil. And these are pre-notched, so it likes to break in the same point every time. So now the bottom of the hole is nice and clean. Let's see if a screw can go in there. And guys, it threads in awesome. Gets a little tight at the bottom because I think the threads are a little bit tapered, but that's good. It's gonna lock itself in just fine. $100 handle new. I only spent 10 bucks on it. And it'll function in the door. Clearly, this part has to be replated. and that'll get replated along with the original, and then we'll reunite these two. The other thing I just noticed on this one, it's kind of dirty in here, but there is a plastic ring in there. And I think that reduces the friction and keeps that lock centered. So let me see if this one has it, because that's a feature that I think would improve the feel of how this goes in and out. And I don't think it's in this one. Yeah, this does not have that feature that this one has. So let me see if I can pull that out. I don't know that they're designed the same way. See if I can get this one out. Prefer not to damage it because I don't know if these are available or not. Yeah, it doesn't really want to come out. It's not an O-ring. It seems like it's a plastic piece. So I'm going to look at the manuals, look at the parts diagram, see if we can get something like that in this one. That might just improve the way it feels and prevent it from getting stuck. If nothing else, at least the helicoil went in okay. And that's really what the video is about, how to install a helicoil in a pretty expensive part, $100 part. I saved it, only 10 bucks. I can use it temporarily while this one's being plated. Then I'll sell this one afterwards and it'll sort of pay for some of the replating costs. Plating is really expensive, but it needs to be done, and happy to have an extra.